Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Read from the Ramayana. We're at the point here, Hanuman has found Sita and gained her trust and confidence and her love. And now she's hopeful that very soon Ram will come and rescue her and destroy the Rakshasas. So they're in the garden, and the last little section was very, it's reminiscent of the madness that is described in the 10th canto of Radha when she's feeling separation from Krishna, and Uddhava, the messenger, comes. And the kinds of, she didn't trust him at first, and in all the different kinds of churning that was going on within Radha due to her intense separation from Krishna. So we see a similar kind of churning going on with Sita when the messenger Hanuman comes from Ram, and she doesn't know if she can trust him, and then she's not sure if she's awake or she's dreaming, or is this really happening? And so she's going through so many things in her mood of intense separation from Ram. This is a very interesting exchange. But finally, Hanuman won her trust, and she could understand, yes, this really is a messenger. This really is a messenger from Ram. So this is chapter 53, and it's called Sita and Hanuman. So let's see where this goes. Dear Vanara friend, said Sita, I do not know whether to rejoice or grieve at the news you have brought. Your words are like nectar mixed with poison. My Lord's love for me is sweetest nectar, and his grief over my plight is bitterest poison. Thus, Sita spoke what she felt and found comfort in putting into words her love and her grief. Pleasure and pain, happiness and misery alternately impel human beings. Sita was consoled but also pained by the thought that Ram had not forgotten her but was thinking of her, grieving and searching for her. We are puppets manipulated by the twin strings of joy and sorrow, said Sita. None of us can escape their pull. My Lord and Lakshman and myself are all subject to this law. You say my Lord suffers like a sailing ship caught in a storm on the high sea. Oh, when will he come here? Dear Vanara friend, when will he destroy Lanka and Ravana and the other Rakshasas? All this must take place within 2 months' time, which is all that's left. Please explain this to my Lord. Only 2 months remain for me. Vibhishan, the younger brother of Ravana, tried his best to persuade the latter to change his ways. Return Sita, he said to Ravana, and save Lanka and the Rakshasa race. All his words have gone in vain. My heart is strong within me. I know Ravana is on the road to the abode of Yam. Soon my Lord will vanquish his foes and redeem me. I have no doubt about this. My innocent heart tells me this, and it cannot prove false. Thus Sita went on speaking with tears in her eyes. Hanuman could not bear the sight of her suffering. Mother, he claimed, I shall go at once and bring back Ram. He will descend on Lanka with a mighty army. But why should you suffer any longer? If you are agreeable, sit on my back. I shall carry you across the ocean and restore you in a moment to Ram. Do not fear for a moment or doubt my ability to do this. As Agni carries the sacred offerings to Indra, so I shall transport you to my Lord Ram. Permit me. O pure heart, to do this service. I can not only carry you and restore you to Ram, but I have the power to wrench Lanka from its foundations and throw it and its ruler at Ram's feet. Sit on my back now, and like Rohini rejoining the moon, you will rejoin Ram. As I sprang and came here, so shall I spring and reach the other shore with you. Thus Hanuman went on speaking out of his affection and enthusiasm, and Sita wondered how the little monkey before her could hope to carry her across the ocean. Hanuman had transformed himself so he wouldn't be discovered by the guards into a little monkey. Hanuman saw her doubts, and so, to demonstrate his powers, he jumped off the platform and began to grow big in size. Sita was pleased, but she said, O son of Vayu, I realize your strength, and yet it is not right that you should carry me. On the way, the Rakshasas are sure to intercept and challenge you. They will hurl their weapons at you. Your care will be to guard me. You will not be able to fix your mind on the battle, and that may be a serious setback to the strongest warrior. In a battle, one cannot be certain of victory, and what would be my fate if you should fail? Besides, in the violent convulsions of a heady fight, how could I be sure of maintaining my position on your back? I may slip and fall into the sea. It's clear, therefore, you should not try to cross the sea with me. Apart from that, Hanuman, if you snatch me away stealthily from the Rakshasas, it would be no credit to the glory or valor of my lord. The honor of the Kshatriya race demands that he should come and fight and vanquish Ravana and redeem me as the prize of victory. Would Ram have stolen back even as Ravana stole me from him? Would Ram have me stolen back as Ravana stole me from him? No, my son, return. Quickly bring Ram here with Lakshman and the Vanara army. Let my lord's arrows destroy Lanka and send Ravana to Yama's abode. His victory is certain, like the fierce sun at the hour of doom. Ram's arrows will burn the Rakshasa people to ashes. You are right, said Hanuman. I shall return alone. But what shall I tell Ram? What sign shall I carry of my having met you and talked with you? Hearing these words, all her happy life with Ram came like a flood to her memory. Her eyes were filled with tears. If she told Hanuman, and Hanuman told Ram some intimate happenings known only to herself and her lord, it would be proof of Hanuman having seen her, and also made Ram see her present disconsolate state. With flowing tears, she recounted incidents of their forest life. Once, in Chitrakuta, my lord and I wandered about in the grove beside the river, and became weary and rested on the ground. He laid his head upon my lap and fell asleep. While thus, a crow came down and hungrily pecked at my bosom. I drove it off, but again and again it returned and troubled me. I then flung a pebble at it, but even that had no effect. Ram was roused from his slumber and saw me thus troubled and weeping in pain. At first, when he saw what the matter was and found it was but a crow, he was inclined to laugh at my discomfiture. But he saw the bruise the crow had made and discovered the bird was really an asura. The bird flew for its life, but Ram sped a dart at it and pursued it wherever it went, till at last the crow asura sought Ram's feet for refuge and found pardon. Tell him of this incident, O Hanuman. I cannot wait for many more days. Tell him to come quickly and save me. Again, she was in tears as she said, on another occasion, we were both wandering all alone in the forest. I was tired. Perspiration had washed off the tilak on my forehead. My lord playfully plucked a pinch of red mineral from the rock and applied it between my eyebrows with his own sweet hands. Ask him if he remembers this incident. As she went on recalling happy memories of the past, the weight of her present sorrow overwhelmed her, and she wept and said, What should I tell Ram? What is that he does not know? Does he need my words to rouse his indignation? Only tell my lord that I embrace his feet. That is enough. There is Lakshman beside him, the brother born to serve him, and of unrivaled skill in arms. Look at his sweet face. My lord even forgot his grief for the father's death. The pure-hearted hero, dear Lakshman, parted from his own mother and came away with us and regarded me as his mother. Tell him he should come and end my suffering. As she thought of Lakshman's heroism and devoted loyalty, Sita's eyes were filled with tears. When Ram had gone chasing the golden deer, did she not insult him and fling burning words at the selfless and devoted friend? The thought of this injustice filled her repentant heart with insufferable pain. She was unwilling to part from Hanuman, who had come to her and consoled her, just as she was about to put an end to her life. At the same time, she wanted him to return quickly to Ram and give him news concerning her. At last she said, "My child, here is the jewel given by my mother at my wedding and fixed on my forehead by the late emperor. Take it, give it to my husband as a sign from me." So saying, she untied a knot at the corner of her sari, took out the divine jewel, and handed it to Hanuman, who received it with humble reverence. When Hanuman had the jewel in his hand, pride and joy filled his mind. His heart was far away with Ram. Mentally, he had recalled Ram's presence and conveyed the glad message of his discovery. Only his body now stayed in Lanka. "Dear friend," said Sita, "you must tell Ram all you have learnt here, and it will be your good fortune to help him to achieve victory." As Hanuman was about to leave, Sita spoke again. "Dear Hanuman, convey my affection to the prince, and also to King Sugriva and the other Vanara leaders. Tell them from me that I implore them to give help to Ram to save me from the sea of sorrow. You, more than anyone else, I hope, will encourage and show the way to the prince in all matters." Hanuman answered, "Lay aside your sorrow, dear princess. Ram, Lakshman, and the Vanara army will descend on Lanka, destroy the Rakshasas, and redeem you, have no doubt." As he was about to go, Sita said again, "Should you not stay here somewhere for a while and rest? Should you return at once? Your visit has given me such great consolation and made me forget my grief for a while. When you leave, I shall sink again in my sea of sorrow. You came here crossing the ocean. How will Ram and the big army cross it? Have you thought of that?" Doubts assailed her once again. "Have no doubt, my queen," said Hanuman. "Do you think I am the only Vanara that could cross the sea? There is not a Vanara but has more power and skill than I. But only Sugriva. Many in his army can fly around the world. What is this narrow sea to them? There are thousands among us who can roam the sky. Have no doubts whatever. Do you think they would send the best among them as a mere messenger? Dear lady, have done with sorrow, for you will soon see me with the two mighty princes on my back. They will lay waste this city with the arrows. They will destroy Ravan and all his race. You have as good as crossed the ocean of sorrow and reached the other shore. God bless you. In a few days you will see the two princes standing, bow in hand, at the gates of Lanka, destroying the Rakshasa host. You'll see the Vanara army leaping with joy over the ruined city. Once they hear the news from me, they will not delay a moment. I have only to tell them, and they will start at once. Do not lose heart." Saying this and bowing profoundly, Hanuman prepared to go. "Tell Ram and Lakshman that I'm alive," cried Sita. "See that no time is lost. May God bless you." And Hanuman left. Let us meditate with reverence on the heroic son of Anjana, the wise messenger who gave consolation to Sita and quenched her grief. "54. Inviting battle. After taking leave of Sita, Hanuman sat for a while on the top of the garden wall and began to think. What can I do to put courage into Sita and some fear into Ravana and his friends to shake their arrogant confidence? It would be good to leave them some souvenir of my visit, some indication of what the future had in store for them. It is clear I must instill some fear into Ravana to prevent him from troubling Sita in the meantime. Fear is the only argument they understand. Ravana has untold wealth, and one cannot part his friends from him. Hence, Sama, conciliation, Dana, buying over, and Beta, sowing discord, are useless in this case. Like divide and conquer, conciliation, buying over, and sowing discord will not work to destroy the power of the Rakshasas. I should therefore do something terrible to frighten them and warn them not to ill-treat Sita. Yes, I must do this before I go away. At once he began to grow and assumed a huge form and began to lay waste the grove. Trees fell cracking to the ground, bowers collapsed, tanks and artificial hills were disfigured and destroyed. The beautiful Ashoka Park soon became a mass of ruin from which the deer and birds fled in fear. Slumbering Rakshasas woke up, were bewildered to see this unaccountable sight. Hanuman sat on the top of the wall of the garden, a huge figure of wrathful menace, waiting for the answer to his challenge. The Rakshasas quaked with terror at the sight of this stranger, and some ran to tell Ravana the news. Some approached Sita and asked, "How did this huge monkey come here? You should know who he is. Did he say anything to you? Tell us the truth. Do not be afraid to speak out." "How do I know what can happen in the charmed world of Rakshasas?" Sita answered, parrying the question. "This monkey is probably one of the Rakshasas, and you're likely to know more about him than I." The Rakshasas fled in fear from the park and reported to Ravana what had happened. "O king, a huge monkey, terrible to look at, has laid waste the royal garden. It was in secret talk with Sita." Of course, they omitted to add that they had fallen asleep and given a chance for Sita to talk to the monkey. "We tried our best to get some information from Sita," they added. "We asked her who he was, how he came there, what he told her, but she refuses to answer. You should seize and slay this creature. Do send a strong foe. The beautiful grove is completely devastated, except for the Simsupa tree under which Sita is seated. Its spreading branches have suffered no damage. The monkey, which laid waste to the tanks and bowers, has spared the habitation of Sita. There must be a reason for this. We suspect that it is not an ordinary wild animal. It must have been sent by some enemy of yours, either Indra or Kubera. Or could it have anything to do with Ram? How did this monkey dare to talk to Sita? He must be a messenger from Ram. Do send your warriors to capture this terrible beast." Ravana was furious on hearing that his favorite park, set apart for his queens, had been destroyed. His eyes glowed like twin torches, and hot tears rolled down from them like drops of burning oil. He turned to the bodyguards standing beside him, ever eager to do his bidding, and ordered them at once to go and destroy the monkey monster. A strong force started to execute the king's commands, armed with maces and spears and other weapons. That was a short chapter, so we'll do one more. Chapter 55, The Terrible Envoy. The Rakshasa warriors saw with amazement a mighty Vanara seated on the garden gate, who at their approach grew to a still bigger size and formidable menace. "Oh, you have come, have you?" he said, jumping down, brandished his tail, striking the ground with it, roared till the four quarters shook. He snatched a huge bar from the gate, and armed with this weapon began to attack them all. He sprang and leaped in all directions, and whirling the iron rod, struck the Rakshasas down one by one. After finishing thus, he resumed his seat on top of the pillared entrance and roared once again, "Long live Ram! Long live Lakshman!" He loudly proclaimed, "Long live King Sugriva! Oh, ye Rakshasas of Lanka, your doom is near. The great warriors, Ram and Lakshman and King Sugriva, have sent me here to destroy you. Come on in, your thousands. I stand here ready to hurl you to destruction. I have saluted Sita and received her blessings, and now I'm going to destroy your city." All Lanka heard the thunder of his words and quaked in terror. When the news reached Ravana that the warriors sent against Hanuman were all slain, he opened his eyes wide in amazement and wrath. It's kind of like King Kong. "What is it you say?" he yelled, and called Jambamali, the matchless warrior, son of Prahasta. And he said to him, "Go at once, punish this monkey, and report to me." The Rakshasa, Jambamali, took some time to put on armor, to take up weapons, and get ready to meet his foe. Meanwhile, Hanuman was not sitting still. He climbed to the top of a temple in the park and stood there, shining against the horizon like a second sun suddenly risen in the sky. He magnified his body still further and looked like a golden mountain range up in the heavens. His roar filled the city of Lanka and raised echoes from all the 8 quarters. The hearts of the Rakshasas trembled in fear. "Long live Ram! Long live Lakshman! Long live King Sugriva! I've come as an envoy of the king of Koshala. I've come to destroy Lanka. I am Hanuman, son of Vayu, come here to utterly destroy the enemies of Ram. I have vowed before Sita and received her blessings. Know that I possess the strength to vanquish 1,000 Ravanas, big boulders and uprooted trees. I shall aim at the Rakshasas and destroy them. That is why I have come here." The sentries in the temple took up various weapons and attacked him. Hanuman jumped down, plucked up a big pillar supporting the temple, and stood there like the destroyer, whirling his massive weapon easily, as though it was a willow wand. Hanuman struck down and slew the sentries. The temple, from which the pillar had been removed, collapsed. As Hanuman struck the ground with the pillar, sparks of fire flew all around. "In Sugriva's army there are monkeys much mightier than I, and they will soon be here," he roared. "You and your king and your city will be destroyed by them, root and branch. Your king has incurred the enmity of the Lord of the Ikshvaku race, has he not? Lanka is nearing its end. Destruction awaits the Rakshasas. The god of death is approaching Ravana." Jambamali arrived at last, with wide, glaring eyes and ugly, irregular teeth, dressed in scarlet, with large golden rings in his ears, bow in hand, garland around his neck, sword at his hip. He came in a chariot, rattling like thunder. Hanuman set eyes on the chariot dragged by enormous mules, and he got ready. Seated in his chariot, Jambamali bent his bow and aimed a few arrows at Maruti, who was seated on the wall. Hanuman. They wounded his face and drew blood, which added to the beauty of his face. It was as if a red lotus had suddenly blossomed in the heavens. The wounds enraged Hanuman, who picked up a big boulder and flung it at the chariot. He uprooted a sal tree and, twirling it, flung it at Jambamali. Then he plucked out a huge iron rod from the temple and aimed it at the chariot and reduced it to splinters and crushed the huge body of Jambamali into a shapeless mass in which neither head nor limbs could be distinguished. The issue of this battle was duly reported to Ravana. He was struck with wonder. "This is indeed something strange," he said to himself. "This murderous brute is not an animal, certainly not a mere monkey. It is some new creature devised by my old enemies, the gods, to annoy me." And he ordered mighty commanders to go with a great army to capture the creature and produce it before him. The Rakshasa chiefs went forth in a great army of chariots. In full force they attacked Hanuman, who was, as before, stationed on top of the entrance and was laughing loudly in disdainful unconcern. They showered missiles on him that mostly glanced harmlessly off his adamantine frame. I don't know what adamantine frame. Formidable, big, powerful. Let's see. English is not these translators' first language, and they have more of a scholarly use of the words than an everyday colloquial use. Unbreakable. Adamantine means unbreakable. Okay. They showered missiles on him that mostly glanced harmlessly off his adamantine frame, unbreakable frame. With each dart or arrow that struck him, he grew in stature and fierceness, and ranging all around with energy, pelted them, rocks and huge tree balls, till all the leaders lay crushed and slain, and the survivors fled in panic and despair. Having killed or put to flight the entire contingent of Rakshasas, Hanuman roared in triumph, and Lanka trembled at the roar. He resumed his seat on the stone battlement on top of the garden gate. Hearing of the defeat of the force sent to capture Hanuman and the slaughter of 5 of his best commanders, fear for the first time entered Ravana's heart. It's extraordinary that a solitary monkey should have this devastating valor and purposeful malevolence, Ravana thought with anxiety. This is clearly a conspiracy of the gods. But he kept his concern to himself and laughed derisively. He looked all around at all the members of the great council. His son, the heroic Aksha, stood foremost, eager for battle, and the proud father bade him go forth to battle against the tremendous foe. Radiant with youth and health and glowing with high courage at this opportunity of distinguishing himself, Aksha went forth in a shining chariot, confident of victory. Okay, so next time they're going to capture Hanuman. It'll be interesting how they do it, but they won't kill him, but they'll capture him. And then we see what happens from there. So Hanuman is a true hero. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.